First presenters up, I'd like to welcome Gaute and Vendela to talk about the Victoria Theatre. Now this was a bit of a surprise project, it hit us by surprise, because I took Dr. Gillian Origi around to introduce her to the GlamX lab in the library and took her up to meet the innovation people that work on all the 3D visualisations. These are the people who brought the Deep Time project to us with the Palais Royal. So unbeknownst to us, they tackled the Victoria Theatre, got the project through, and now they're on the hunt for anything relating to this particular building that you might have. So Robert, I signal you and your contact, if you could go and revisit her and find out who she gave these papers to, it would help. Anyway, over to you guys, thank you very much.
Good afternoon, thank you so much for having us. As John mentioned, I'm Gaute Rasmussen and this is Vendela Pento, so you don't confuse us the other way around. We have slightly unfamiliar names. That's from, we're from the Nordic countries. So as John mentioned, we're from the IT innovation team. So I'll just give a very quick background on what that means. So we work here at the university. We're part of the IT department. And our job is to kind of look at interesting new technology and how we can bring that to university to bring benefit in some way to teaching and learning or research or any kind of extended areas of the university and how we can contribute. So in connection to that, we did a project with Johnny and Anne last year regarding the Palais Royal site and the archaeological dig that happened there, and we did a kind of reconstruction of the trench, of the different layers of the soil, and set up a system where they can kind of digitize all the 5,500 artifacts, and we can kind of bring that into a database and do a virtual reality reconstruction of that. So that was a really exciting project. And now we've been lucky enough to get funding for another round of something history related. And this time it came from Gillian Origi. So she's been looking at kind of theatres and their historical significance. So in particular, we're looking at the Victoria Theatre. So here on the left, you have the olden days, what the theatre used to look like, and this is now what it looks like at the moment. So currently, there is a project underway for the theatre to be renovated in some way. So it's a company called Century Venues that currently own this, that are looking at kind of bringing that back to life and returning it to some sort of state of being capable of functioning as a theatre. But our project is kind of looking at taking it way back to the way it looked in 1891 to essentially create a digital reconstruction of the building the way it was after that particular round of construction. Now the theatre has a much longer history than that. It started back in 1857, I believe, on Watt Street, and then it was moved to Perkins Street in 1876. Then the new version, which is closest to what we see at the moment, was created in 1891. So that's the one we're targeting. We're hoping to create some sort of simulation that can be viewable in virtual reality. So users of this experience can get the sense of actually walking into the building the way it would have seemed to for the patrons back in the day when the original opening day in 1891. We're also hoping to make this available to the public in some way so that this can benefit the community. This is very, very early days for us in the project. We literally got the green light of this last week. So we're kind of scrambling to get our resources together and get this moving. And keep in mind, anything that we say in this presentation is kind of pending further discovery and approval and development. So these are very much our kind of loose thoughts and our current intentions. So very quickly, what we hope to kind of give the users the ability to do. So once we make this complete, we're hoping that people can come in, put on a virtual reality headset, and first of all, be able to kind of see the streetscape. So being able to see the surrounding environments, how was the Victoria Theatre situated relative to other buildings in that area? Roughly what do those other buildings look like? So we have some historical records for that, so we can reconstruct, and we have some photographs, so we can reconstruct a little bit of that streetscape. We want them to be able to then walk through the doors into the theatre itself, and there we had this idea of if we can find as many posters as possible of performances that would have been at that time in 1891, And then they can kind of interact with those posters and hear the music that's related to those performances to kind of bring them back to that time. Another element we thought of was, because that would essentially be a snapshot of that 1891. But we know that there's much more history both before and after that time that we could bring to it. So, the different time snapshots, of what kind of iterations the building has gone through, what kind of performances have been there over the years, who have been the owners, what has been some of the drama around it, legal cases, complaints, all that kind of stuff. To essentially give a bit more meat on the bone so users can come in and get more of an understanding of the history of the building. Then, as the users got into the main theatre room itself, the auditorium, we thought it'd be nice if they can kind of pick out certain aspects of the architecture and kind of isolate those out and see them in more detail. When you go into a 3-story building and there's some sort of fantastic sunburner lighting system up in the ceiling, it's really, really far away. But in virtual reality, we have the benefit of, we can bring these things right to you. And we can kind of see things in closer detail that you can't actually see in real life. So in one sense, we can give users here an experience of the architecture that even the original people wouldn't have been able to see in 1891, because we're in virtual reality rather than real reality. The last one, and this is a bit of a stretch, we want to let users go up into the dress circle and kind of virtually sit down in the rows and then see some sort of semblance of a performance the way it would have been back in the day. Now our plan for this is if we can get any pictures of actual performances that happened, we can try to kind of recreate elements of that. So essentially give depth to a 2D photo so you can get the sense that this is actually happening on the stage in front of you. Now we won't be able to have like actors walking around speaking dialogue, but we can kind of get a sense of the proportions of the space and how the actors would have seemed in that space. So that's kind of roughly our goal of what we're trying to do. So since we got started sometime last week, Vendela and I have been trying to play Johnny.
Researching, digging into
Fun, isn't it? It's fun.
So much fun.
It's very fun. Yeah.
So we've been talking about getting like an private investigator sign on our door, because that's kind of how we feel at the moment, digging through the records. And so far we found, and we've also been working with Gillian and her assistant Stephanie at home, who've been able to give us a lot of references already. So what we have is some visual references of the exterior of the building, quite a few pictures of that. We have some floor plans that are from 1888 or predating 1888, and specifically the building version we're targeting is 1891. So we're thinking that those floor plans don't apply. We have some references for architectural details that would be similar. So what we see here in the top left, for example, is from the Villa Alba, which is by the same interior decorator, I believe, designer. So we know that there are similarities between those and how it would have looked in the theatre. So we can use some of that. We've also started briefly creating, so what you're seeing in the bottom right here is our kind of 3D reconstruction of the theatre exterior. And
very rough still, don't
very rough. This is a day and a half of our work. And kind of how it looked in that streetscape. And again, Johnny was very helpful with finding us maps of, what were the streets looking like at that time, what were the buildings surrounding it. So we're very much in the early stages, and we're not experts at digging through history. We specialize in IT and project management and software development and that kind of thing. So what we really need is a lot more references, historical artifacts, whatever we can get. We are talking to the company that we're trying to talk to the company that currently owns the building to try to get access, to actually get in there and see what it looks like. But we are aware that there have been alterations in the building
Especially
since.
the front, the vestibule.
Yeah. So the vestibule has pretty much been radically changed because there has been retail on that ground floor over the years. It's also been modified because it went from being theatre to dual-use theatre and cinema. So they've widened the stage over the years. So even if we get into the building, we know that that's not a true representation of what it was back in the day. We need floor plans of the way it was in 1891. We need as many images as possible. So anything that's in private hands, people who went there in the early days and took pictures of, what it looks like inside. Anything to do with the performances, tickets, posters, reviews, anything like that would be great to have that we can kind of put into the experience to give it more flavour. Any pictures of the actual performances themselves, that would be great.
Even if they're from a different theatre, but from performances which were held in Newcastle.
Yep. If we know that a certain show ran at this theatre, we can get a picture of the same show somewhere else, that'd be great. Or anything that we can't think of. Again, we're not the experts on this. If you think about, recreating an experience of walking into a building from, 1891, what should be in that experience? You tell us. We're not the experts there. So that's essentially it for us. We're starting on this, and the more resources we get from the community, the better result we can give back.
Have you tried the library for programs?
Yeah. I think
Programs would be used for the shows,
Yep.
and that would have who is in them. I've got a few old ones at home. I'll have a look through them. I don't know whether they're Victoria Theatre. What's your cut-off point? Are you saying 1891?
To 1899 is
1899,
looking, the first year, the first decade.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we know that in terms of the building structure, we know that was changed in 1921. So in terms of structural stuff.
I definitely try the library. I don't know whether the archives have got any.
We're looking. I'm going to Sydney on Thursday to photograph 2 files they've got down there. So they cover the period. Again, it's difficult because we've got a beautiful scrapbook in cultural collections from 1915 to 1916. Basically clips every performance that was in that year. But we're looking primarily for its opening. Now, Trove will be a great source for that sort of stuff. I sent you a link that Ethan, one of our volunteers, was looking through. So you've got the performance that was on when they opened it in 1891.
Yes.
So that's the key one. But finding images, well, that's where we have to sort of see. We've got lots of programs floating around from later eras, but trying to find images from that particular period.
So we have lots of newspaper articles of what the interior looked like, but a newspaper article can tell us only so much. If we could get photos from somewhere which would give us more detail, we could zoom in and see, oh, that's what they really mean like that. So that would be it.
Keith?
Have any access?
Well, I'm saying it's many shows there, but I just can't say that I have to put a photo.
You pair should sit together.
No,
You'll sit funny side.
Okay, Keith?
Oh, yes, I know, but 1950s and things towards the end of the life of the theatre. And David Griffin, you must talk to him, because David and I did the proposal to have state heritage listed. And if it hadn't been state heritage, it would have been gone. So David's got a lot of stuff, and he's got to get, doesn't have that memory that I have for his knowing.
All right, Keith?
Yeah, some years ago, Newcastle Library had an exhibition. I think it was just on the Victoria. I remember I went to a piece of, I think it's called Funny Money, advertising one of the shows that were on, and later they found they had a copy of it anyway. But they do have some memorabilia, and I know a friend of mine sold them. He bought it at a second-hand bookshop, a poster from the 1890s, I think. And I remember him saying it was the earliest one that the Herald, that the library had. It's not very decorative, but at least it's an early poster advertising something at the big theatre when it was before it was a cinema.
So that's in local studies, is it, Keith?
Yeah, local studies.
Local studies.
Person to see there would be Sue Ryan.
That's
Yeah,
Sue Ryan at the Newcastle Public Library in Layman Street.
Yeah,
I can
so,
send her details.
Yeah, so for the Newcastle Library, I've made a contact there and I'm meeting with them on Wednesday. So
Okay.
hopefully I'll see what I can
We'll
do.
mention that.
Posters.
Have you come across the name Paul Birchall in your research?
Not yet, no.
Well, I believe he was an owner or part owner about 20 years ago, maybe a little longer. And he's the man who owns the carpet cleaning company, Electrodry. So he might be a valuable source because he may have found things there and done things with them.
Sorry,
What was his name?
Paul Birchall, Burchell, and he's the owner of Electrodry.
Thank you. Yes, Ken.
There was a family that used to perform in the Vic quite often, the Deglorians,
Yes.
and there was a lady of Deglorian living in the at the top of town.
Del
I've got some information on that.
I don't know whether she's still alive or not.
No, I don't think she is.
Oh, that's sad, because she'd been able to help them.
Well, you've got the
Yes.
old...
Then magazine,
Yeah.
which-
Yeah, we've got up on SoundCloud and in the Margaret Henry Oral History collection an interview with Del DeGlorian back in 1988, and she talks about her great-great-uncle who was a trapeze artist in Britain, who then worked at the Victorian Theatre in the 1800s. So I can send a link to that audio that's available. The other thing was that I was contacted last week by Anthony Scully from ABC. ABC Open are looking at doing something through July where they ask the community to solve a problem or provide any images or anything in their like collections relating to something. So we've got to get back to them with ideas and
Picking this, maybe this one would be the one.
thought this would be a great one to get discussion
Because this is
going.
what we need them on now. So if radio can do some plugging for us out there,
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's sort of like a search, I guess, to find artefacts.
Yeah.
And then I received an email from Ian Eckford, who's an architect and done his PhD on Christchurch Cathedral, but mentioned the name John Straw as the architect that was involved in building the architect of the designer of the building, and he's willing to talk to you if you
Sorry,
need.
architect in what year?
1800. Well, he thought it was about 1890s.
1890 was done by James Henderson.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he's also mentioned
Maybe there's more.
John Straw.
John Straw.
John Straw.
Sorry,
this,
spelling on that? S-T-R-U.
Straub.
Oh, Straw.
Yeah.
John Straw was the builder. He built a lot of buildings at the time. STRAUB.
Okay, well,
Builder.
he mentioned the architect, so. But I'll get
He
some more
did a lot of
information
Buildings in
from
the
him.
city and, maintenance design and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, so he's the builder.
Okay. Good, good.
Sorry, David.
Oh. I'm thinking the floor plan is dated 1888 and the building was completed in 1891. I'm thinking that the floor plans may be the actual plans for the building, which may have taken 2 or 3 years to build and finish.
Yeah, so we thought that at first, but first of all, we know that those floor plans from 1888, they were attached to a letter sent in 1888. They might have been drawn before that. Also, we found a newspaper article that claims that James Henderson, the architect, was engaged in 1890 for the project.
Right.
So, but we also know that he was a prolific architect in the area, so he might have simply been doodling, plans for the theatre before that, because the 1888 floor plans are not very complete. Like, I wouldn't hand those over to an engineer to build a building, certainly. But we also know that there's a map that those 1888 floor plans kind of match, and they don't match the one from 1896.
Yeah.
So we know that there's been a change there in the map.
We kind of believe that maybe James Henderson has gone, because the 1891 theatre was built on top of the 1876
76, yes.
building, so that the performances were ongoing as far as possible. So we believe that he's been doodling, that he's drawn the original 1876 building first and then started building on top of it. And we believe that these floor plans we have are the 1876 one.
So these were the ones that were found by Jane Ison in state records. We thought they were the later ones until you started actually digitally reconstructing them, and then they realised from the footprint that they were actually the earlier ones. And so we were able to confirm that by the Malstead and G plans, the fire insurance plans, with the same format, same footprint, and then the waterboard plans. From the 1890s, they confirmed the later building, which was much more of a square design. So it's just finding in the bits and pieces.
Because you've been to the theatre. Like, how early did you go?
1952, I think, and then and many times afterwards.
So how's the layout of the ground floor? There was a hotel, and then there was the theatre behind it, right?
Oh, in those days, no, it was open at the foyer and a very good. And we sit mainly upstairs in the.
Can you press your microphone?
And
Sorry,
we had a
Doug,
lovely-
press your button. Don't stick it there, or you'll just get
Yeah,
it.
but I think that Dave Griffin, you know, who we work with? Bill Nethery at the Heritage Office, but Bill's dead now, unfortunately. However, David had a lot of stuff, but they had a flood, and I think he lost a lot of photographs and things too.
David who, Doug? David who?
David Griffin.
Oh, okay.
He's on our committee,
Yeah.
on the Parks and Playground Committee. Yes, we followed that through because we were really worried about the building. But there it is. And have you been able to contact the people who own it now?
Essentially, then
Yes.
yes. We've got
Yes.
two contacts there now, so we're trying to gain access, but it's a OHS risk to go in there because it's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The thing is, one of the great things is that it has been identified in planning terms as part of the revitalisation of Newcastle. So that's a pleasing thing to know. But we need funds to get it going. Yes, I'm sorry that I can't. My memories are dim, but I do remember dancing up and down Hunter Street after the shows and things.
So you'll have to capture Doug as soon as you can. Keith?
Yeah, I was going to mention David Griffin as well. If you looked up the State Heritage Register, we'll probably have the listing documentation and a bibliography there. And David, I can give you David's email address if you're prepared to spend an hour on the phone with him. But the other thing I just thought I'd mention is that you had some photographs there. One appeared to be a chandelier, the middle one.
Yes.
Sunburner.
Where's that taken from?
So that one's, I think, also from. Oh no, that might not be from Vendela. So it's not from the
It's not the
theatre.
City Theatre.
No, it's just an example of that same or similar model of lighting that would be in the main auditorium.
Right, okay.
What about the seat? Where did the seat picture of the seat?
Yeah, so similar things. So this is some of these images here at the top are provided by Stephanie Horn, who's Gillian Arrighi's assistant. So she's done a lot of research on the elements that would have been in the theatre to try and find visual references from other buildings that would have had similar things. So we, for example, have some of the sales catalogues where, you know, buildings like this would have bought fixtures from, but they're not pictures from the actual theatre. For example, we know when it first opened in 1891, the seats were gold, not red.
My father was an upholsterer.
Oh, right.
So no, and I know he did the Civic Theatre. They're very familiar to me. I'm sure wherever they came from, I wouldn't be surprised if they did those too.
Yeah.
He was of some note, but the Civic Theatre ones are different now. But when they were redone, they had wooden arms and they were all redone. They did all of those.
Yeah.
But I just wondered where that'd be a bit. I think that might be later, not as early as.
Yes, exactly. And you did a search on this, the wooden seats.
Yes, so the third level we know that had wooden seats only. It didn't have these patented American folding seats. It had only wooden seats, but again, we have no other reference than just a quick note mentioning this.
I wonder whether the last owner of the building, or the last owner of the building, when it was still, when it was the shop, clothing shop, you know, he lives out at Belmont, well, that's if he's still alive.
Yeah.
It's, I know, I've been in his house and when we were fighting the local sailing club that wanted to build up towards his house. But the thing is, he was a very practical and nice guy.
Sorry, what was his name?
I can't remember his name, but I doubt I find his name.
Anyway, look, jog your memories and anything that you can remember, send to us and we'll forward them on to... Oh, sorry, Tim, press the button.
Are you after current images of the interior? Or are you just hoping to get inside?
No,
We just need to get inside. We
Yeah.
want to do a 3D scan of the building,
Yeah.
to get the dimensions of
Absolutely.
everything and a feel of the space. But mainly we're looking for anything from the 1890s.
Yeah. I mean, if there are images from like early 1900s, that would also be useful to kind of see what it looked like then. But yeah, current images, I mean, we have some, like we've seen a couple of websites that show some images of what it looks like now. Yeah, mostly we're after what it looked like back then. Because hopefully we'll be able to get access and we can take all our own photos of the interior. So yeah, anything that you guys have that you think of later on, or if you know somebody and they can find something, you can send it through to Johnny and he can get it through to us.
Okay,
That's it. Right.
thank you very much. Round of applause.